All right, so today we're diving into something that, might not sound the most exciting at first. Credit freezes. You're probably thinking, really? Is this going to be that interesting?
Right.
But trust me, this is one of those things that's way more fascinating and honestly way more important than it might sound at first glance.
Absolutely. And it's a topic that I think can give you, a real sense of control over your financial well-being when you understand it.
Yeah. And let's be honest, who hasn't worried about identity theft at some point? It's a pretty common fear, right? The idea that someone could be out there opening accounts in your name, racking up all this debt.
Yeah.
And you're the one who's going to be stuck dealing with the fallout.
Right. And it's a huge problem.
It's scary.
It is. Identity theft is a huge problem. And the consequences, they can be so stressful and time-consuming to sort out.
For sure.
So, that's where credit freezes come in.
They're like that extra layer of protection.
Exactly.
So think of this deep dive as your guide to understanding credit freezes.
Yeah. We're going to break that down.
And we'll break down exactly what they are, how easy they are to use, and why you might want to think about using one, even if you haven't really considered it before.
Yeah. And we'll also cover when you might need to, temporarily unfreeze your credit and some strategies for making that process as smooth as possible.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. Could you just explain what a credit freeze actually is and how it works?
Sure. So a credit freeze essentially puts a lock on your credit report.
Okay.
At the three major credit bureaus, which are Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion.
Got it.
So it's kind of like putting up a do not disturb sign.
Oh, I like that.
For your finances.
Okay.
When your credit is frozen, those bureaus can't release your credit report to anyone without your express permission.
So basically, if someone tries to open a new credit card or a loan in your name, the lender can't even see your credit.
Exactly. Most reputable lenders won't approve an application if they can't check that credit report.
Right.
So it's a really effective way to stop fraudsters in their tracks.
That makes total sense. Now, I've also heard about something called a credit lock. Is that basically the same thing as a credit freeze?
It's similar.
Okay.
But there's a key difference. So credit locks are services offered by credit bureaus.
Okay.
Or, credit monitoring companies.
Yeah.
And they often come with some extra features like alerts.
Oh.
Or easier ways to lock and unlock your credit. But the catch is that these services usually have a monthly fee.
Oh, so you have to pay for it.
Yeah, whereas a credit freeze is completely free.
Oh, that's a big difference.
It is.
Yeah.
It's actually a right that's guaranteed by federal law under the Fair Credit Reporting Act.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay, so credit freezes are free.
Great.
Federally protected. Credit locks may be some fancy features, but you'll have to pay for the convenience. Got it. Now, I get that it's free and it stops people from opening new accounts.
Right.
But does it affect, my existing credit cards or loans, the things that I already have?
Oh, nope, not at all.
Oh, good.
Yeah, a credit freeze doesn't change your existing accounts.
Okay.
Or how you use them. You can still use your credit cards, make your payments, all of that.
So it's not like it shuts everything down?
No.
Okay, good.
And importantly, it doesn't impact your credit score.
Right.
So unlike things like, missed payments or maxing out your cards, a credit freeze has absolutely no negative effect on your score.
That's good to know. But, part of me, I have to admit, kind of thinks, why bother? So far...
Laughs, knocks on wood.
Knocks on wood. I haven't been a victim of identity theft.
Yeah.
So isn't a credit freeze, a little bit overkill?
It's a fair question.
Yeah, if I'm already being pretty careful with my information.
Yeah, it's easy to think it won't happen to me.
Yeah.
Especially if you've been lucky so far.
Yep.
But the reality is, data breaches are happening all the time, more and more frequently.
That's true.
Companies, big and small, they're getting hacked all the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes, we don't even know our information has been compromised until way later.
Right.
So a credit freeze is like a preemptive shield.
Okay.
It's adding a layer of protection, even if you're already taking steps to be careful.
So it's almost like an insurance policy.
Exactly.
You hope you never need to use it.
Yeah.
But it's there for peace of mind.
Right. Think of it this way. You probably lock your car doors, even if you live in a safe neighborhood, right?
Yeah, true.
It's not because you're expecting your car to be stolen, but it's an extra layer of protection just in case.
Yeah.
A credit freeze is kind of like that.
Right.
It's just a simple step that can provide a lot of peace of mind, especially if you're not actively applying for new credit anyway.
It makes sense. It's not about being paranoid. It's about being proactive.
Exactly. And for some people, like those who have already experienced identity theft, or maybe particularly vulnerable seniors, for example, or even children, a credit freeze can be really beneficial.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a way to kind of regain control and prevent further damage.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see the appeal of this. It's
Mm.
like having that extra layer of security around your identity.
Exactly. And while we've talked about the benefits in a general sense, sometimes those abstract ideas, they don't really hit home
Yeah.
until you hear real-world stories
Sure.
about how credit freezes have actually saved people from some, real identity theft nightmares.
Yeah, you're right. It's one thing to, understand the concept, but it's another to actually see how it plays out in real life.
Right, for sure. Okay, so imagine this. You're going about your day, completely unaware that your personal information was compromised in a data breach a few years back.
Okay.
And then one day, out of the blue, you get a call from a debt collector
Oh, no.
about an unpaid credit card bill. And you're completely confused because, you haven't opened any new accounts recently.
Right.
But when you investigate, you discover that someone has been using your stolen information to open credit cards in your name,
Oh, wow.
and they've racked up thousands of dollars in debt.
That's terrifying. That's like a nightmare.
It is a nightmare for a lot of people who experience identity theft.
Yeah.
But this is exactly the kind of situation where a credit freeze could have been a lifesaver.
Okay.
Because if your credit had been frozen, that fraudster wouldn't have been able to open those accounts in the first place.
Right.
The lender would have tried to pull your credit report, hit that freeze, and denied the application.
So it's like a wall that stops identity theft in its track.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this isn't just a hypothetical scenario, by the way.
Really?
There are countless stories of people who've avoided these major financial headaches thanks to credit freezes.
That's great.
We came across a story about a young woman who was preparing to rent a new apartment. She had everything lined up, but when the landlord ran a credit check, there were red flags.
Oh, no.
It turned out someone had used her stolen information to open a utility account in another state.
Wait, so it's not just about credit cards and loans.
Nope. Identity thieves can get creative.
Wow.
They might try to open utility accounts, cell phone contracts, even rental agreements, all using your stolen information.
So a credit freeze is really about protecting your entire financial identity.
Absolutely.
Right.
And the impact can be far-reaching. We also read about a couple who were in the process of buying their first home.
Oh, wow.
They'd been working so hard to save for a down payment and get their finances in order, and then bam, identity theft hit.
Ugh, that's awful.
Yeah, someone had used their information to open several payday loan accounts, which really messed up their credit scores.
Oh, no, that's heartbreaking. All that hard work just to have their dreams put on hold because of something they had no control over.
It's devastating. And unfortunately, it happens more often than you think. In their case, they were thankfully able to clear their names eventually. But it was a long and stressful process.
Yeah.
If they'd had a credit freeze in place, they could have avoided that whole nightmare.
So it sounds like it's amazing how such a simple step can potentially prevent so much stress and hardship.
It really is. And these are just a few examples. We encourage you to do your own research and read stories from people who've experienced the benefit to credit freezes firsthand. It might just convince you to take action and protect yourself.
Okay, you've definitely convinced me. But before I rush off to freeze my credit, are there any tips or tricks I should know about to make the process as smooth as possible?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Here are a few things to keep in mind. First, remember that you need to freeze your credit with each of the 3 major credit bureaus individually.
Okay.
There's no one-stop shop for this.
Okay, so no shortcuts. Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, got it.
Second, be sure to keep your PINs or passwords for each bureau in a very safe place. You'll need these to unfreeze your credit when you legitimately need to apply for something like a loan or a credit card.
Right.
Losing track of those PINs can create a real headache. So consider using a password manager or storing them in a secure location.
Okay, good point.
Treat those PINs like they're the keys to your financial kingdom.
Makes sense.
Here's a tip you might not have thought of. Consider freezing your children's credit too.
Wait, really?
I know it sounds strange since kids are obviously too young to have credit.
Yeah.
But identity thieves often target children because their clean credit histories make it easier to open fraudulent accounts.
Oh, wow.
And these accounts can go undetected for years, wreaking havoc on their credit by the time they reach adulthood.
So it's like a proactive gift of good credit for their future.
Exactly. It's one of the best things you can do to protect their financial well-being. Now remember, knowledge is power. The more you understand about your credit and the tools available to protect it, the better equipped you'll be to make informed decisions.
So true. Speaking of being informed, what about credit monitoring services? I know a lot of people use those to keep an eye on their credit reports. Do credit freezes make those services unnecessary?
That's a great question. Credit monitoring services can be helpful for detecting suspicious activity,
Okay.
but they don't actually prevent identity theft from happening.
Oh, okay.
They simply notify you after the fact, whereas a credit freeze acts as a preventative measure.
So it's kind of like a burglar alarm that goes off after the thief has already broken in?
Exactly.
A credit freeze is more like having a really strong lock on the door in the first place.
That's a great analogy. And they can work together. You could have both a credit freeze in place and subscribe to a credit monitoring service for added peace of mind.
So they're like complementary layers of protection.
Got it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Now, I know we've been talking a lot about the benefits of credit freezes, but are there any downsides? Are there any situations where a credit freeze might not be the best option?
It's a good question to ask, and it's important to consider your individual circumstances. If you're someone who applies for credit very frequently, maybe for your business, or because you're constantly taking advantage of new credit card offers, the unfreezing process might become a bit of a hassle.
Okay.
But for the vast majority of people, especially those who aren't actively seeking new credit, the security and peace of mind offered by a credit freeze far outweigh any minor inconvenience.
So it's about finding the right balance for your needs.
Exactly. And even if you ultimately decide that a full credit freeze isn't right for you, simply being aware of this option and understanding how it works is empowering.
Yeah.
It gives you more control over your personal data and financial well-being.
Knowledge is power, right?
Absolutely. The more you know about how your credit works and the tools available to protect it, the better equipped you'll be to make informed decisions.
All right, so we've learned that credit freezes are a powerful tool for protecting against identity theft. They're free and easy to set up, and they don't hurt your credit score. We've also talked about how to temporarily unfreeze your credit when you need to apply for new credit. But there's still more to explore, right?
Yes. There are a few more nuances to the unfreezing process and some specific scenarios we should discuss to make sure you feel completely comfortable using this tool.
Perfect. Let's dive into those details after a quick break.
All right, so we've covered a lot about credit freezes, but what about those situations where you need access to your credit quickly? Like a true emergency.
Yeah.
Say you're in the hospital and you need to cover like an unexpected procedure.
Right.
You can't exactly wait around for days while your credit unfreezes, right?
That's a great point, and it's a common concern.
Yeah.
But rest assured, credit freezes aren't designed to create those roadblocks in genuine emergencies. In a situation like that, you would simply explain to the hospital or the medical provider that you have a credit freeze in place.
And they would be understanding. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Most businesses, especially in emergency situations, are accustomed to working with people who have credit freezes. You then follow the usual steps to unfreeze your credit, which, as we discussed, can often be done very quickly online or over the phone.
Okay, so that's reassuring. It's good to know that there's flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about things like renting an apartment or applying for a job? Don't some landlords and employers use credit checks as part of their screening process?
They do.
Yeah.
And having a credit freeze won't necessarily prevent them from running those checks.
Okay.
The key difference is that they'll be seeing a snapshot of your credit history from the time that the freeze was put in place.
Oh, okay.
So they won't see any new accounts or activity that occurred after the freeze.
So it's like pausing your credit report at a specific moment in time.
Exactly. And in most cases, that's enough information for landlords and employers to make a decision.
Right.
They're mainly interested in your overall creditworthiness and payment history, which a freeze doesn't affect.
Got it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about credit monitoring services.
Okay.
These are pretty popular these days.
Yeah.
And, people use them to kind of keep tabs on their credit reports and get alerts about any potential fraud.
Right.
So if you have a credit freeze, do you still need a credit monitoring service?
That's a really smart question.
Yeah.
Credit monitoring services are great for catching suspicious activity
Okay.
and alerting you if something seems off.
Right.
But they don't actually stop the fraud from happening in the first place.
Oh.
It's kind of like a burglar alarm that goes off after the thief has already broken in.
So the credit freeze is like having a solid lock on the door.
Exactly.
And the credit monitoring service is like having the alarm system just in case someone tries to break in.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Okay.
The two can actually work really well together.
Yeah.
A credit freeze to prevent new accounts from being opened,
Right.
and a credit monitoring service to give you that extra layer of awareness and peace of mind.
Yeah, that's super helpful to know. Okay, last question before we wrap things up.
Okay.
I know we've talked about all the upsides, but I'm guessing some people might feel like a credit freeze is just one more thing to keep track of.
Yeah.
Is it really worth the effort?
I understand that hesitation. We all lead busy lives.
Yeah, for sure.
But honestly, the potential consequences of identity theft are so significant
True.
that a credit freeze is a very small price to pay for the peace of mind it offers.
Especially since it's free and relatively easy to set up.
Exactly. And remember, unfreezing your credit when you need to is straightforward and pretty quick. So while there might be a tiny bit of effort involved, it's truly a minimal inconvenience compared to the nightmare of dealing with identity theft and trying to repair your credit after the fact.
Yeah, you're right. All right, I'm convinced. It sounds like a no-brainer for anyone concerned about protecting their financial identity. So as we wrap up this deep dive on credit freezes, what's the key takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
Knowledge is power. We encourage everyone to do their own research and decide what's best for their individual needs. But understanding how credit freezes work and the protection they offer is a huge step towards taking control of your financial well-being.
Well said. We'll be sure to include all the resources we've mentioned in the show notes. And for those of you who are ready to take the plunge and freeze your credit, we've got links to the credit bureau websites where you can get started.
And remember, if you decide to set up a credit freeze, keep those PINs safe and sound.
Exactly. Guard those pins with your life. But seriously, folks, we hope this deep dive has given you the information you need to feel confident about protecting your credit.
It's been a pleasure exploring this topic with you.
And to our amazing listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey. Until next time, stay curious and remember, knowledge is power.
If this podcast helped you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us keep making these videos. Thanks for watching.